All right, let's go. Welcome to eCom Raw Reality episode 16, where we talk eCom, Shopify, paid media, email marketing, and anything that has to do with e-commerce. And as always, trends are connected in most cases with e-commerce, and there are a couple of things we could talk about because there has been viral video about Saratoga water, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the name of the brand. So a guy making a viral video, and then that brand just getting more attention, more sales, and that wasn't even AI, right? So it's just like the usual trend. However, if we want to talk about AI, right, because there's clearly a gold rush right now. So it's 1st of April right now, no jokes around here. And let me actually put my phone on mute so we don't get distracted. And right now there's definitely some kind of gold rush, right? And let me tell you how I see it as you, myself, and anyone else who's listening, the 5 people that are actually listening to this video can take advantage of the AI gold rush, right? Because in all cases, if we think about something new appearing, right, there's someone who is actually working on that thing, right? So it's actually someone doing the work, and then someone who is helping that person who is doing the work, right? It's the selling the shovels concept. Someone is selling the shovels and someone is using them. And for example, myself, I'm a service provider, so I have an agency, so I do help brands with their paid media, with their email growth strategy, and so on. And the thing is that in most cases, so let me tell you how I take advantage of this, right? Because there are a couple of things. First of all, if you know that people are aware there's like an AI shift going on right now, right? AI revolution. Ideally, you do talk about it. And this is more so the psychological factor, right? Just like being interesting, being up to date on things that happen around you, right? Because let's be honest, sometimes it's not really about what's actually working best. It's about like making something seem like it is interesting, right? And this is not necessarily in a manipulative way, right? But think about it like this. Some people, like myself actually, like to eat the same thing every day, right? Consistency, discipline. However, not most people are like this, right? Because even myself, I can't listen to the same podcast all the time. Sometimes I get bored and I listen to something new, right? So it's that novelty. And almost everyone prefers to have some novelty if that novelty is actually useful in some way, right? So how do I actually use it? Well, right now I export a lot of data from clients' ad account, email, platform, reviews, then feed it into ChatGPT, into Claude, and then try to get some insights out of it, right? So it's still about asking the right questions, something that never changes because this is what we need to do over time. Things change, but if we always know what questions to ask, of course, we'll find a good answer, right? So for example, how do we take advantage of AI? So as a service provider, you can talk with your clients about AI, how they can use it, actually using it for them. And even right now, later today, I have a call with actually 2 brands, like 2 business owners in the same call. And how will I use AI? Well, I do have some data from these brands. So to some extent, I will basically maybe impress them just by the fact that I used AI data and I got more info than they probably ever considered, let's say, right? Because sometimes you want to make projections. And for example, a couple of years ago, making projections in terms of efficiency, of revenue, of what targets you would hit, right? We were using spreadsheets all the time. We were trying to figure out just like inputting manual data, right? And now you can just ask Claude, all right, based on this, give me maybe, I don't know, a Monte Carlo model, right? But that's like more advanced. But you can ask for a conservative, a realistic, an optimistic scenario where you grow something like 5% conservatively. 10% realistically, 15% optimistically. So there are multiple ways to slice and dice this, and that's how I'm using it. I'm basically trying to ask the right questions and try to see what the future might hold, right? Because what does someone actually want from you when you work with them, right? They want some predictability. They want to know that you are the person who can help them get from point A to point B. Just like with your Uber. Why would you call an Uber driver? Because you want someone who you are pretty sure, based on reviews and so on, that they will get you from point A to point B, right? So it's not different when we think about providing services. And if you are not the service provider, but for example, you're the business owner of an e-commerce brand, right? Even then, more or less, you are doing the same thing. You are actually serving your clients. It's just not high ticket, right? In most cases, it's probably some kind of consumable or apparel, jewelry, things that have a lower cost, maybe $50, $100, $200. Even that is not like very high, right? For a mattress and bedding, you pay this type of prices. And you need to think about AI and how to use it for the business, right? Because in most cases, if you sell something that's physical, customers don't really care about your AI, right? However, you can look at your business and try to introduce AI in it, meaning that you can have chatbots. And that's actually a big deal, especially if you don't have some kind of VA in the Philippines already. So chatbots. Then you need to think of landing pages. I think that's actually more advanced, so it's not for everyone, but even landing pages, I think Fermat is one of those softwares. And that one is some kind of software basically that creates multiple landing pages, and they are to some extent personalized for different types of people, right? Because for example, you have someone who likes, let's say, a deal, right? You have someone who likes the new shiny things, early adopters. Then you like then you have someone who wants to relax. Then you have someone who wants to have bigger muscles. Then you have someone who wants more peace of mind. So all of them are slightly different, and you would need different messaging. For example, for me, it would be, let's say, having a good deal, right? I always like to think in terms of ROI, return on investment. Is this going to bring me something? Either joy, either more health, either longevity, either energy, either calm, peace. So these are all things that we are basically giving, even as service providers, but even as e-commerce business owners selling physical products. So that's why it's really important to look at the landscape, what's happening. And I mean, right now, you could just go on Google, and ideally still Google, but you can also do it with ChatGPT. eCom AI, and let me actually do this in real time here, and let's see what we can find. So first opening, let me see, how do I open Chrome? All right, so eCom AI tools Shopify, and actually there are a couple that I could name, but just making sure that we reward the tools that are here, that have been able to get on the either first page or on the Shopify recommendation website. So basically AI tools for e-commerce, right? So actually, from what I'm seeing, I'm not really impressed by the list on Shopify, but you could see here that they actually recommend ChatGPT and stuff like that. And actually, if you don't have someone who does research for you, then you should be actually doing additional research with ChatGPT. And then it's hard to say which ones to use, but for example, Shopify Magic, this seems to help with your landing page, right? So if you're not as savvy with let's say business in general, right? You're trying to use tools that enhance what you could do. So just making yourself, your website, your business better because of these tools, which are fairly low cost. So for example, as something that they show here on Shopify, right? So you can change the product background here, right? If you have a product and you show it in different environments, because sometimes you just have, let's say, and I just had some coffee, you just have the product, but you don't have amazing images, right? So what can you do? You take an image and then you try to use ChatGPT, especially nowadays, and recreate some backgrounds and even put it in someone's hand, right? Because if you don't have a model, if you are not really keen on being on camera and so on, you can just generate images with anyone. Like you can even put a dog holding your product, right? It's pretty weird for sure. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's an option, right? And I mean, who says that's not a good idea? Maybe it's a good idea and you should actually test it. So basically we are, I would say, in the gold rush. Some are making more money, some are making less, some are not even taking advantage, right? Because not everyone is actually listening to YouTube videos and so on, right? Some people right now are just like working on something that they've been working for maybe 10 years on, and then they go to the gym and they're not listening to any podcast. So of course, like, not everyone is always learning, right? And this is something that I've noticed like along the way, and even myself, sometimes I've been in high learning, high growth mode, and then either trying to be stable for a while or actually declining if I'm not doing anything useful, right? So that's why it's important to listen to videos like this, because you do get hyped up by seeing other people do the same, right? That's why I'm also in communities with email marketers, paid media guys, and e-commerce, I would say. But honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the e-commerce space in general. You know, I do prefer more so the entrepreneurial space, just because I would say most people there have an even better mindset, right? Not necessarily thinking as an employee, but more so like as someone who has an impact, right? Because this is sometimes the problem with someone who is, let's say, an employee and doesn't have like an owner's mindset. The problem is that you don't always think in terms of accountability, right? If someone else pays you and you know that you need to just do some amount of work and you're not really motivated to push at any time, then yeah, it's very, very hard to grow, right? That's why one of the best roles are the ones that are in sales or paid media, let's say even email marketing and others. But the more you go down in terms of like business impact, the less you can feel that you can make an impact, and that actually doesn't make you want to grow. Because if you know that you're the sales guy, you know that if you don't sell, no one is eating, you know, like the business doesn't exist. So that's why it's really important to also think in terms of the roles you have, the skills, and always grow. And that's why over time we can all develop our skills. And right now in the AI golden rush, right, we can definitely accelerate this by actually speaking with ChatGPT more, trying to get him or them, I don't know, it's a him, right? Let's be honest, to get him to teach us some things and actually help us with some answers that with some questions that we might have. As an example, yesterday I was just researching the Beckham law in Spain, right? I was looking if there's any tax favored places in Europe, and there's like Beckham law, which means that you don't pay tax in Spain for a couple of years, but it would take time to research stuff like that. While in 30 minutes, or let's say maybe 60, I found out almost everything. I also compare Spain with Portugal, Italy, Greece, other countries in the south of Europe, and it was really quick. And I didn't have to put too much effort. So that's why it's really important to do that. But I know we're coming on to around 15 minutes here. So let's end it with this, just by coming up with a short conclusion. And that is that ideally we always try to learn something and then implement it, right? In my case, just like I said, trying to feed a lot of data into Claude right now and letting it help me create beautiful graphs, which otherwise I couldn't make. So that's pretty much it. If you liked this video, you can leave a like. You can hang around if you like this type of videos. And until next time, peace out.